I'm Kiyan.
And this is Trust Your Doctor, that podcast where we put a superhero in a stranglehold.
While wearing an Elvis outfit. Yeah,
Yeah,
it turns out Zoe's Elvis.
What? I was just thinking a better intro to this episode would have been where the TARDIS blows up, because that would have been way more of a cliffhanger for the description of the episodes.
Yeah, it would have. Even though I feel like they just shoehorned that into episode 1 and then almost forgot to resolve it.
No, they resolved it in the final 10 seconds. And that's not actually a joke. It was the final 10 seconds.
But yes, this week we watched, what was this called? The Mind Robber.
Yeah.
Kind of a misnomer until, like, the final 15 minutes.
Yeah, but the final 15 minutes was awesome!
Yeah, it was.
That was probably one of the best scenes so far. Which doesn't make this the best serial so far, but it was a good serial.
It was a good serial. It was different than a lot of serials, but I think we should save this review-ishness until after the summary like we usually do.
Mm-hmm.
So, it starts with the volcano again from last serial, and it's slightly different this time. Obviously, they reshot it, but they leave the island, and some stuff in the TARDIS isn't working.
Yeah, the fluid links again.
So Jamie is like, well, Zoe, I almost said Vicky. Zoe thinks the eruption's like really cool, and she's like, whoa, a volcanic eruption. The Doctor thinks it's pretty interesting too, and Jamie's like the only one who's like, we need to get out of here, guys. And so yeah, the fluid links aren't working, or fluid link isn't working. I don't know if there's multiple ones, but the Doctor says that they can't leave unless they use I don't even remember what it's called, but it's the thing that'll get them out of there, but they might all die.
Yeah, it'll land them outside of space and time, apparently. What kind of emergency system does that?
The TARDIS works in mysterious ways. Anyway.
Well, they do it.
Yeah, we might want to mention that episode 1, I didn't know this until you told me, apparently, I guess it's on the wiki, that episode 1, this was originally going to be 4 episodes, but it was turned into 5 when Dominators was condensed from 6 to 5, so they needed another episode for this, so they just threw in episode 1, and that's why it barely has anything to do with episodes 2 through 5. Blech. Can't talk.
And also why the episodes are all like 18 minutes.
Yeah, these are really short episodes. Honestly, too short, in my opinion. I don't know about you. I'm like 24. I'm okay with 24. Sometimes it's a little bit long, in my opinion, because sometimes there's episodes where we say this a lot. They could have been condensed. Honestly, 20 through 22 usually seems about right to me, but these just felt too short. Not that they were trying to tell more of a story than they could have, obviously, because it was extended. It just felt like while I was watching it and it was already over, and I was just like, wow, it's already over.
Yeah. But, considering episode 1 just didn't set anything up, at the end you were left way more unfulfilled than you would hope to be.
Well, I mean, at the end of episode 1, I was...
Well, there was that cliffhanger.
Well, I was like, hey, I thought they were going to go in some sort of cool direction with what they did in episode 1, but then they didn't. So
they went on a different cool direction.
Yeah, they did. So I wasn't as disappointed as I could have been, but still, they didn't really go anywhere with what they set up in episode 1, which makes sense now that we know it was just thrown together.
So they're in this infinite featureless white plane void thing, and on the scanner, when Zoe and Jamie look at it, they both see, I guess, their home location.
Yeah, Jamie sees Scotland, and he hears bagpipes along with his vision.
Yeah.
And Zoe sees her home city, which she calls her home city. She's like, hey, look, it's my home city, never mentioning its name.
Well, oh well.
Assumedly somewhere on Earth. Maybe
then,
she's from the American Southwest. It looked like it was in a desert. I don't know. And that's obviously the only desert on the face of the planet.
What if she was from, like, Egypt?
Egypt's not a desert. No, it is.
Well, anyway, they both get lured outside, and they go, and the doctor's like, "Oh no!"
Yeah, the doctor had previously told them not to go outside, but then they do it anyway.
Yeah. And so the doctor somehow gets them inside the TARDIS, but not before they're confronted by these white robots that when you see them in color are actually pretty shoddily designed, but that's at least covered by the grayscale.
No, even in grayscale, I felt they were pretty shoddily designed. Not in episode 1, but when they came back later in episode 4 or 5, you got a good look at their faces, maybe because the episode quality was a bit better. And I was just like,
well,
wow.
When you see it in color, you can definitely tell the face is just like cardboard.
Yeah, now that you think about it, or now that I think about it, they don't have to. If they want to just throw something together that's unpainted cardboard, they kind of can, because it's black and white, and you'd never be able to tell.
Yeah, well, until they hit, the color era. Yeah, the only reason I've seen it in color is because I was randomly browsing an article and there was a picture of this cereal in color, and I was like, hey, wow, those robots look way more shoddy in color. But anyway, the doctor gets him back inside the TARDIS only for it to promptly explode.
Right, but first they have that whole thing where Jamie falls asleep for about 30 seconds, has a dream about a unicorn, wakes up, and everyone ignores him as usual. I don't know if you've noticed this, but Jamie's been getting ignored a lot more than he has been in the past. Like in a few instances in this serial and last, where he was like, hey doctor, hey Zoe, doctor,
It's okay,
Zoe.
because in this serial he also just ignores the doctor, so...
But yeah, he has that dream, turns out to be prophetic, and then Zoe wears what I imagined is a... Oh god, what even was that? It was like a...
My favorite outfit so far. Just such an eyesore.
And, okay, so Jamie says, hey Zoe, you better get changed. That outfit is really impractical. She's like, okay, because she's still wearing the same outfit from last serial. So she goes and gets changed into an equally impractical outfit, which is just I imagined it was definitely sparkly. I imagined it was like yellow and like a jumpsuit.
I imagined it as like bright silver. Like reflecting all the light. Just blinding everyone.
Essentially a sequined jumpsuit. But yeah, then the TARDIS blows up.
Yeah, that's how episode 1 ends. No! Because the first scene of episode 2 is the Doctor is floating through space. We left off the scene where the Doctor's like, no, I will fight. And you're just like, what?
I assume that was...
the mind robber in the title. Because that's what I assumed.
Yeah, I also assumed it was the same force that propelled Jamie and Zoe to leave the TARDIS. The Doctor was trying to fight it off mentally, which he does. And he actually does leave the TARDIS and lead Zoe and Jamie back.
Yeah.
Originally, when that first happened, I was confused because I thought that Jamie and Zoe were just seeing a vision of the Doctor. But no, the Doctor actually did leave the TARDIS. But yeah, and anyway, episode 2...
begins with Jamie and Zoe sitting on the console while it's spinning through space.
Right. That blatant sexual positioning of Zoe.
True.
And then...
they land in some sort of forest.
Yeah.
They get transported to some sort of forest by magic.
And it doesn't look like a forest at all. And at this point, I was like, wow, that is one of the most low-budget forests I've ever seen. It gets explained, but for an episode and a half, I was kind of just, eh.
So Jamie tries to attack this red coat he sees, and he gets frozen into some sort of cardboard cutout with no face.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't have no face until a little bit later.
Well, until the Doctor shows up, right?
Yeah.
Because Jamie and Zoe got separated, we should mention that.
Right. And then the Doctor's also separated from them, and he's just kind of wandering around until he hears Jamie and Zoe's voices. I don't think they ever expanded on whether those were actually their voices or whether he was being misled or anything. I assumed they were actually their voices.
Mm-hmm.
Possibly not, though, because Jamie's cardboard. But yeah, so the doctor decides to go help Jamie, or to go rendezvous, I guess, with Jamie because he's closer.
Mm-hmm.
So he does so, and then he realizes that Jamie has been transformed into a cardboard cutout.
Yeah,
But
and
isn't the scene of the children first?
yeah,
Yeah, so
that's the Doctor's first scene on this
Or-
plane,
wherever they are.
land.
So, yeah, the doctor runs into some children, and they start telling him a bunch of riddles for no apparent reason, and he answers most of them. And
He answers all of them, doesn't he? And then the children kind of just run away. They're like, "Oh, he's perfect," and then they're like, "Oh, dinner time," and they run away. And the
Yeah.
Doctor's like, "What?"
and they give this slight foreshadow. I don't know if it's foreshadowing or if they actually meant you to know that this is what's going on. But one of the riddles is they hand him a sword, and they're like, "What can you make with a sword?" And he's like, "What can you make with a sword?" Well, words, because it's sword rearranged. So they throw the sword up, and what falls down is a book into the doctor's hand, and yeah.
The pen is mightier than the sword. Heyo.
So yeah, the doctor meets up with Jamie, like we were saying before, and all of a sudden, Jamie's cardboard cutout no longer has a face.
So,
But not before that obtuse word puzzle, where there's a bunch of objects around, and I don't know if I remember it. Let's see. So yeah, there's these objects around, and the doctor's like, "What could this mean?" Well, and he assumes it's some sort of word puzzle, which it is. So there's the cardboard cutout of Jamie. The word mist. No, there's some mist, like in the area, and there's like this sign or something that says, like, it has an M and a T crossed out, and there's a safe, like a vault
Yeah.
type of thing, and then a well, like a water well. So somehow the doctor puts all of this together to create the sentence, "Jamie, cardboard cutout, is mist minus the M and the T, safe and well."
and then he realizes he needs to reconstruct Jamie's face, and he tries, and Jamie...
Right there's like there's some sort of cork board or something with sets of eyes, noses, and mouths on it, and that's how he has to do it.
And
Sorry, I just wanted to explain that.
No, yeah. And the doctor's like, "Oh, that's not right." And Jamie's like, "What? I'm completely normal again, doctor."
God.
And he's like, "Oh, no. Your face, look." And he gives him a mirror, and he's like, "Oh, no. That's not my face."
And it's not Fraser Hines. The doctor reconstructed his face wrong, and now
get-
someone else is playing Jamie.
Hamish Wilson.
Is that how you pronounce his first name? I wasn't sure.
That's how it's spelled.
Yeah, I didn't know.
His claim to fame is playing Jamie for one episode.
What if they just replaced Jamie? What if they just replaced Fraser Hines?
Yeah, I was thinking about that. Like, what if Jamie just doesn't come back and for the rest of the series? Like, for the rest of the season, he's played by this guy.
I would be pretty disappointed. Not because it's honestly that big of a deal when you think about it, but I mean, if I was Fraser Hines, I'd just be like, "Wow, guys, you wrote me out for crappy story reasons like this." But no, he shows up later in case you
Anyway.
couldn't guess.
So they find Zoe, and then there's this other obtuse puzzle where they have to free Zoe that I don't remember.
I don't remember that one either.
Anyway, she ended up getting trapped in a jar, and they let her... Oh, yeah. She was inside, and the door was
God.
locked.
This one was even worse.
And the doctor was like, "Oh, when is a door not a door? When it's a jar." And then it turns into a jar, and Zoe's in the jar. So Jamie lets her out.
Yep. Don't know how he's figuring these out. I mean, I wouldn't have. I'm pretty sure most people wouldn't have been able to do this. But hey.
Well, maybe that battle with the guy in the beginning, that mental battle, gave him some clues as to what he was going to have to do. Which
Maybe.
involved puzzles and fiction.
Maybe. But yeah, then they run into this guy who looks like, looks like your typical 18th or 17th century explorer type guy. And
Guy.
it's true. And yeah, they get to talking to him, and they find out he's from England, that he had been transported here or somehow had found his way here and didn't really know how, same as them. So then the robots appear.
No, the soldiers appear.
Oh, right, the soldiers.
The other footmen of the master.
Right. Throughout all of this, there's been mention of the master. We don't know who he is yet, but apparently he's the one who's in control of this place. So yeah, the soldiers appear, and the doctor, Jamie, and Zoe decide to hide. And they ask this explorer guy to not give away their location because apparently he doesn't want to hide or something. So they do so, and as the soldiers are walking by, the guy is like, well, there's no danger here. You guys can come out. And they're like, what? The soldiers are right here. Why did you give us away? You said you wouldn't do that. But yeah, apparently he can't see the soldiers.
Yeah. So, anyway, the soldiers take them out of the forest, and then a unicorn shows up and starts charging at them, and Jamie's like, it's just like my dream, Doctor. What are we going to do? It's going to kill us. And then the episode ends.
And then episode 3 begins, and the doctor somehow realizes that if they confirm with themselves that the unicorn doesn't exist, then it'll disappear or stop or
And it
something.
works.
And this is the start of that happening a lot. And I want to bring up something with that, but not until it happens a couple more times. Because it will. Oh, it will. So yeah, the unicorn freezes in its tracks once they say that it doesn't exist. They go about their merry way. I guess they find their way into some sort of labyrinth. And there's some string there. Provided by the master, they assume. And I assumed it was. So they start using this piece of string, or this spool of thread, to get through the labyrinth. And they somehow get separated. I don't exactly remember why or how Jamie goes off on his own, but he does.
They run out of string, and Zoe and the doctor decide to continue, and they tell Jamie to wait at the end of the string, but he decides, nope, I'm going to find another way out. And he goes and does find a way out, incidentally.
Yeah, he finds his way out onto some sort of cliff. There's a soldier there, but he evades it by climbing up the cliff. And then he reaches a point where he can't climb anymore because the cliff face is just too sheer or something. And he's like, man, I really wish there was a rope or something. And then a rope falls down. And he's like, wow, that's convenient. So he climbs up, and he finds out it's someone's long braided hair.
Yeah, it's Rapunzel's hair.
Yeah.
And she's like, are you a prince? And he's like, nope, but I borrowed your hair, so thanks. Can I come in? And she's like, well, you should only come in if you're a prince. And he's like, well, I can't go down, there's a soldier down there, so I'm coming in.
So he does, and the inside doesn't look like a tower. It looks like a futuristic area.
Base.
And then it turns into base under siege. No.
What? Fairy tale creatures start attacking the castle. Go all Shrek 2 in this, up in this.
Shrek 2. I haven't actually seen Shrek 2. Wait, have I? Which one was 2?
The one with Prince Charming.
Oh, I have seen that one. Unfortunately.
Wow.
Anyway, this has nothing to do with the serial. But yeah, Jamie starts wandering around because there's really nothing else he can do, and he finds this machine that's feeding out or printing
ticker tape.
Yeah, and he starts reading it, and it's talking about the Doctor and Zoe in prose format, and apparently they're being confronted by a Minotaur.
No. Oh, yeah, the Minotaur, yeah, first. And then they're like, oh, it doesn't exist. So it doesn't exist, and it goes away.
Yeah, they realize that they're in the labyrinth from Greek mythology, I guess. Mm-hmm. And yeah, another instance of, oh, it doesn't exist.
And then Medusa shows up, and the episode ends.
But not before those, I guess this was claymation. I mean, I'm not even sure what those snakes were. Like, there was...
Well,
Was it clay? I assumed it was claymation because one, it looked like clay models. Two, the frame rate was really bad, which makes me believe that they moved the snakes a lot between each picture.
hey,
And yeah,
well, it was impressive for the time.
it was. It looked pretty cool
Anyway,
in an old technology sort of way.
episode 4. Jamie's reading off the ticker tape, and it says the doctor picks up a sword and cuts off Medusa's head. So a sword appears by the doctor, and he picks it up and is like, oh no, we can't use this. Medusa doesn't exist. And he just drops it. And Zoe's
Right.
like, but she does. She's right there. I have to look. And then he remembers the tale about Perseus using his polished shield to look at Medusa, because there's no danger in looking at a reflection of Medusa, whereas
Right.
if you look at her eyes, will be turned stone. So he shows.
Yes, he just has a mirror on him. So.
Well, he used it to show Jamie his face earlier. So
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah. That. All right.
so he shows Zoe Medusa in
The mirror.
the mirror. We also forgot the scene where he fixed Jamie's face that happened in episode 3.
Oh yeah. Jamie's not Hamish Wilson.
Yeah.
Wilson anymore. He's back to being Fraser Hines.
He attacked someone, got frozen, and got his face repaired.
And the
With
doctor.
Zoe's help, I might add.
Zoe finds out that the doctor was the one who rearranged Jamie's face incorrectly, and she was like, "You did this, didn't you, doctor?" And he was like, well, I was rushed, okay."
Anyway, so they believe the Medusa out of existence again.
And at this point, I was like, "What is even not what's happening, but like this is kind of strange because what are the rules that apply here? I mean, do you just have to say the thing doesn't exist? If it's right there, you're bound to believe that it exists because it's just general human nature. If you see something that's right in front of you, you assume it exists." So do they actually have to not believe in its existence? Can they just say it doesn't exist and then it disappears? Like
No,
what?
I think they have to believe it doesn't exist. Because I think the doctor mentions that as long as you believe it exists, it does. When he was talking to Zoe about Medusa, he was like, as long as you believe she's there, she will be. And she's like, but she is there. And then when he shows her
okay.
Medusa in the mirror, because Medusa looked like a statue still, Zoe was like, oh, how can she possibly be moving if she's a statue? So then she doesn't exist, so
No.
Medusa turns into a statue.
I guess, but I don't know. In my opinion, I wouldn't just be able to not believe in something that easily.
Yeah, well, in the very next scene, which we're about to get to, the doctor doesn't believe
Yeah.
that the carcass doesn't exist. He's like, but it does exist, because that's a fictional character he's never heard of. So he's like, what?
But even still, I don't know. I mean, I can say this mic in front of me doesn't exist. That doesn't mean it. Doesn't
Right,
mean
you
it
have to
doesn't.
believe it doesn't exist.
Okay. I just felt that they were able to get to that conclusion much more quickly and easily than I or anyone else would have been able to. But whatever. So yeah, they find their way out, I guess the same way that Jamie did, because they wind up where he was, below the cliff thing. And they're confronted by the soldier, I believe.
Confronted by the carcass.
Aren't they confronted by the soldier first?
Oh yeah, because they duck, and then it shoots. And then the carcass shows up. And the doctor's like, hey, that weapon can't exist, it's impossible. So he destroys the carcass's weapon, but he can't destroy the carcass because he hasn't encountered this guy, so he doesn't know that he's a fictional character. And Zoe's like, he doesn't exist, doctor. The doctor's like, but he does.
And it turns out he's a comic book character from the year 2000, which begs the question, when did Wheel in Space take place? We still don't know,
Well, after 2000 at least.
I guess, but I feel like Zoe
Which places it after the first time the Cybermen invaded the Earth, because that was
Yep.
in like the 60s.
in the 80s,
80s,
85.
Yeah.
But yeah, either Zoe is just a really big fan of the carcass, or she's from sometime around 2000 and knows who he is. Turns out she's from like 2500 and is just a huge carcass fan. No,
Maybe they republished his stories.
500 years later.
They republish Sherlock Holmes like every 20 years, so...
Who knows? It's really not put together
But
well.
anyway, he's supposed to have super strength, but then Zoe just...
Puts him in a stranglehold.
Uses her hyper kung fu skills.
She flips him a couple times. Okay, and I want to discuss the Carcass's costume. Not now, not later, but right now. Because what was up with that costume? I was not sure if that was... He was wearing like a muscle suit, right? And I wasn't sure if that was supposed to actually be their attempt at making him look muscular, or if part of his costume was just supposed to be that he wears a muscle suit, because it looked terrible.
I don't even have a comment on that.
But
could be either.
But yeah, then apparently they enslave the Carcass because he starts doing Zoe's bidding and calling her master.
Maybe it's some obscure character trait from his comic book run that no one knows of, that if he gets beat, he just submits to whoever beats him.
Hey, I mean, it's possible. So he knows the way up to the castle. Apparently there's a way up by foot that Jamie didn't know about. So
because the Carcass did.
Yeah. So he leads Zoe and the doctor up, and then they dismiss him for some reason. Could have come in useful later, but they dismiss him.
Well, we forgot the scene in the labyrinth where the doctor figures out that strange man who's from England is Gulliver.
Right, from Gulliver's Travels.
And he can only speak by saying lines that were written down by whoever wrote Gulliver's Trails. I don't actually know who that was. Gulliver's Travels, yeah.
Yeah. So he speaks in the past tense and everything.
So anyway, the doctor impersonates the Carcass to get into the castle.
Yeah.
And it works.
Apparently they don't use their sense of sight at all to verify that he's not the Carcass.
Yeah.
Because he says he's the Carcass and he's a comic book character from the year 2000 and they let him in.
Yep.
He looks nothing like the Carcass. I guess they're not doing it that way. Anyway, they get in, and Jamie had tried to escape the castle previously, but it didn't work because apparently there's some sort of sensor that triggers when he goes through a doorway that sends the robots in. Mm-hmm. So he hides from the robots, and Gulliver shows up, and this time he actually doesn't give away Jamie's location. So the doctor and Zoe are about to walk through the doorway that sets off the robot alarm. Jamie tells them not to. I guess the doctor figures out that it's just a laser trip beam thing on the floor, so they jump over it.
No, he picks up Zoe and throws her over it. And then he jumps over it. It was vital to mention that Zoe got picked up and thrown over.
It was. So, then...
They find the ticker tape machine, and the doctor's like, test failed. Wonder what that could mean. Because when the doctor refused to pick up the sword and lop off Medusa's head, the ticker tape printed, cancel, doctor, test failed.
Yeah. So, the doctor then decides that they should somehow get an audience with the master, because they keep hearing about the master. They don't really know who he is or why he's sent them there. So they decide that the quickest way to do that is to call in the robots. So even though they do decide that, Zoe is like, what? We can't do that. I'm getting out of here. So apparently she forgot that they just jumped over a trip beam a few seconds ago, and she runs over it, and the robots come in, and they get their audience with the master.
Yeah. It was around this point where I was like, well, I guess they're trying to get the doctor to get trapped in the land of fiction. Because, like, if he picked up the sword and lopped off Medusa's head, then I assumed he would get trapped there because he would have done what the ticker tape predicted.
Yeah. And that's confirmed, like, in a minute.
Episode 5. Yeah, in episode 5.
Yeah. If you watch these back-to-back, it's like a minute, which I did.
Yeah, I did too. Just 4 and 5, though.
Yeah. So, yeah, they get their audience with the master, who's an old man. We had seen the master before from the back, sitting at his control panel watching the doctor and his companions. But this is the first time we see his face. And he tells them that they're in a land of fiction. They'd already assumed that or figured it out. And he tells the doctor that he tells him that if he, like you said, basically what you said was right. Like what you predicted turned out to be true, pretty much exactly. That if they fulfill the fictional prophecy thing, not prophecy, but if they fulfill what had been written down for them, then they'd be trapped as fiction and would no longer be real.
And the master brain needed the doctor to replace the old man because the old man was getting old and the doctor exists outside of space and time and doesn't age as quickly as the master, so he wanted the doctor to be the master.
Right. And the master was actually serial or like a story serial writer from the 20s who'd been taken there for his ability to just continue writing, because apparently he had a serial about pirates published in a magazine for 25 years at 5,000 words a week,
Which is a lot.
yeah. So yeah, but now that he's about to croak, they need the doctor.
Well, the doctor's like, well, best we stay all together, Jamie, Zoe, and Jamie's like, no. He actually just straight up says no. And then Jamie and Zoe, like, sneak off. But turns out the master predicted that, and they get trapped by the white robots and get smushed in a book. And get turned into fictional characters.
Yep. And the doctor is given this ultimatum where something bad is going to happen to Jamie and Zoe, because now the master can control them because they're fiction, unless he submits to the master brain.
And the doctor refuses very rapidly and very adamantly. He's just kind of calm, and then all of a sudden, I refuse!
What even happens then?
So the doctor makes a break for it.
Oh, right.
He's like, I've yet to see a robot that can climb. And he climbs the bookshelves and escapes to the roof. And he calls in the carcass to open up the panel so he can get to the master typewriter.
Right.
And then Rapunzel shows up and he uses her hair to get down.
Do Jamie and Zoe show up? Yeah, they show up
when he gets back to the top. Oh, no, they show up first,
before.
and then he's like, oh, you've been turned into fictional characters. Then he just ignores them and goes down. He's about to fix it, and then he realizes if he refers to himself in the writing, then he'll become part of the fictional universe. So he's like, oh, no, I can't do that. I almost fell for that.
Right, and apparently that was part of the master's plan all along. And I wrote down that the doctor has lightning fast typing. Like, did you notice that?
Yeah, I wrote that down, too. I was like, God damn, he writes fast. They just added all those sounds in post-production, and no one was paying attention to how quickly they appeared after each other.
I mean, most likely. Possibly.
But anyway, so he climbs back up, and he's like, well, I don't know what to do now, guys.
And then apparently the TARDIS is there now, and Jamie and Zoe convince the doctor somehow that they're not fiction anymore, and they should just get in the TARDIS and leave, and he's like, oh, thank goodness. So he gets in the TARDIS, and apparently it's just a cardboard cutout of the TARDIS because it falls over the second he steps in and reveals that he is now strapped to some sort of machine that places him under the control of the master brain.
Yep.
Good going, Doctor. They were fiction.
Except that turns out to be the only way he ends up winning.
Yeah. Because apparently what the machine was supposed to do was place him under control of the brain and convert his thoughts to fiction. But only the latter of those two happens. And the doctor remains under his own control. And now he has the power to create things in the fictional world.
Yeah, and the master's like, well, this is a problem. So his first act is to free Jamie and Zoe. He convinces them to open the books. They do. So the fictional versions just turn into the regular versions.
I guess there were two different versions of them. Ones that were trapped in the book and the ones that were.
So now they're hanging out with the children and Rapunzel and the carcass, and they're like, well, now what? And then there's this great battle, which is probably one of the best scenes so far.
It was pretty good. It wasn't like super fantastic.
It was good. It was very good, and I enjoyed it. Where the doctor and the master have a battle of wits, where they summon fictional characters to fight for each other, and there's this epic orchestral music playing in the background.
It fades in, might I add. The fade in was a great part of that music.
But the monster summons. Who does the monster summon first?
He summons some sort of pirate with the guy who. The guy with the nose.
Yeah, some guy with a nose.
Guy with a.
Well, guy who always
with
got
a
made
nose.
fun of with his nose, so
Yeah.
he became a good swordsman. And then, so the Doctor summons a musketeer to battle him, and they do battle. Meanwhile, Jamie and Zoe have decided to go find the Doctor. And then the monster decides to replace his character with Blackbeard. Yeah, he replaces it with Blackbeard, and the Doctor decides to replace the musketeer with Sir Lancelot in full armor.
Yep.
And then Jamie and Zoe show up at the Monster Brain, where the Doctor is and the Monster is. And the Monster Brain makes a crucial mistake in admitting that if the Doctor isn't controlled, the brain will overload. And it's subject to being overloaded by a lot of other things, too.
So Jamie and Zoe start randomly pressing buttons on the control panel, kind of like the Doctor did in Power of the Dogs. And things go to hell.
Yeah, the monster decides it's not worth it. He tries to get the robots to kill the Doctor, only for all the random button pushing to freak out the monster, who decides the robot should kill Jamie and Zoe first. But Jamie and Zoe get out of the way, and the robot starts shooting the console.
And everything blows up. Zoe, Jamie, and the Doctor escape with the Master. Because now he's not under control of the Master Brain anymore, so the writer himself is taken along with them.
Yeah.
And he doesn't know where he is, and they tell him that hopefully the Doctor says that he'll be able to go back to his own time, and Jamie, and Zoe will be able to keep traveling through time if all works out. And Jamie's like, "Is that really gonna happen, Doctor?" And the Doctor's like, "I don't know." And that's
he's like, "Well, either that or we'll just fade into oblivion." And then he's like, "Well, I guess we're about to find out."
And then you see the TARDIS come back together.
And then the end credits roll.
Yep.
Like we said, in the final 10 seconds.
Yeah, so that was the Mind Robber.
Pretty good serial.
But wow. At least the final episode had a lot in it.
Yeah. Even if it was only like 20 minutes.
Yeah, and even if it did feel pretty abrupt. I guess I was thinking while I was watching, like my first reaction was like, that was really abrupt, right? But then I was thinking like, it's pretty much all resolved. Like it's as resolved as well as it could be. They could have done something better than, the Master Brain just overloads and blows up and the robots all shoot each other.
Yeah.
But like, I didn't feel that was a super disappointing way to end it.
Yeah, it didn't feel disappointing. It felt like everything was resolved in a satisfactory manner.
Yeah, maybe because of the cool battle.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't like it as much as you, obviously.
Well, there was a sword battle. It was like, ding, 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 ding.
But yeah. So...
there was something I wanted to talk about that'll come to me in a second. Oh, yeah, so at the start of this serial, if I hadn't known the Celestial Toymaker wasn't going to come back, I would have assumed that the villain for this serial would have been the Celestial Toymaker.
Yeah, this would have been a good opportunity to bring him back if they were going to do so.
Which they should have.
Yeah.
Because he was a good villain.
He was better than the Master Brain. Honestly, if they just replaced the Master Brain with the Celestial Toymaker, this entire
or the Great Intelligence.
Or a combination of the both of them.
Oh, no.
Getting into fan fiction territory. No. But yeah, honestly, if they replaced the Master/the Master Brain with the Toymaker, they would have only had to change a few plot points of this serial.
Yeah.
Like just specifically right at the end.
Yeah. I mean, this serial felt like a Toymaker serial.
Yeah.
You know, fictional things come to life.
Maybe it was originally written for him. Who knows? It probably wasn't.
Probably wasn't. Someone just had an idea and was like, hey, that's cool.
Yeah. We're never gonna stop talking about wanting the Toymaker back, are we?
No. Just like how we never stopped talking about Tagana.
Yep.
Yeah. So.
Oh, I wanted to say, I'm a pretty big proponent. People, I feel, usually say like different is good. And I'm a big proponent of, yes, different can be good, but that doesn't necessarily mean that if something's different, it's good, or if something's the same as something else, then it's bad. Not just in this case of Doctor Who, but just in fiction in general, in my opinion.
Right.
But honestly, this is the first time on Doctor Who that we've seen something like this, possibly barring Toymaker, but that wasn't it wasn't samey enough to this that I felt that they were.
Yeah.
What am I saying? You know what I'm saying, right? And after tons of Base Under Siege, I did feel like it was a nice change of pace. I did feel that this was a nice change of pace. So I guess in this case, I do say that, yeah, it was good because it was different. Or at least it was a good serial that was made even further good because it was different than anything we'd seen so far.
Yeah, season 6 is going a completely different route than season 5, which I think is making it a better season than season 5 was.
In that the two serials we've seen so far, Dominators and this one, are completely different.
And hopefully next week it's also different. But if season 6 continues like this, I think it might be the strongest season so far.
Possibly. I mean, season 2 and 3 were pretty good about that too. About doing different things each time. Or at least doing things not back to back with something that was kind of samey.
Yeah.
Because it can get boring. I mean, like I said, I'm not a big proponent of different is better, just inherently, but if you're seeing the same thing over and over, it can get boring. So, yeah. Other than that,
I think the only thing I wanted to mention was that they're starting to use a lot more incidental music and like identifiable themes. Like in this serial, there was a clear theme that would play every time the toy soldiers would come on.
I didn't notice that at all. The only music I noticed was the orchestral backing track to the sword fight.
I only bring it up because there was a scene where it was playing and the toy soldiers weren't on the screen. I was like, what's happening? Are the toy soldiers coming? And then they did, and I was like, well, that's interesting. Which,
I didn't notice that at all.
I don't know. It's kind of cool to use like themes that are like based around certain characters. Like when the character comes on screen, then you're like, oh, yeah. When the music comes on, you're like, oh, that character's going to be coming up, or
Yeah, I mean, that's interesting.
So, I guess that's kind of the final thing I wanted to mention. You have anything else you want to say about this?
Not really. It was just a solid serial. So I mean, like we've said in the past, if a serial's just good or just okay, there's less to say than if it's great or if it just completely sucks.
Memorable villain. Good plot. Everybody
memorable
did
villain.
Sort of memorable. We should make a note that you shouldn't confuse this monster with the monster who shows up later in the third Doctor's run.
Yeah, I thought this was gonna be the introduction of the Master.
Yeah.
But then like in episode 3, I was like, by episode 3 or 4, I was like, no, this isn't the Master.
Yeah.
It's the Master.
So
apparently, his official title is the Master of the Land.
Yeah. Or the Monster of the Land of Fiction, whatever you've...
Oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense. I didn't think they noticed that. I'm just reading it right. I didn't notice that while watching it. I don't know if they said it at all because I'm just reading it right now on the wiki. I think they just called him the Master for the entire time.
The credits credited him as the Master, at least in episode 5. Because I remember looking to see what they were going to call him.
Oh.
I thought that was interesting. Maybe the Radio Times credited him as Master of the Land. I don't know. But it's not the same monster who shows up later, and that's the important distinction.
Yes.
So we are done with the serial.
Yeah. We mentioned this before, but we should probably also mention again that next week we have The Invasion, which is 8 episodes, and just due to schedule conflicts and stuff, we're going to be breaking that up into 2 sets of 4.
So episode 47 and 48 will both be The Invasion. Yeah. And there will be the double-length episode that will be released on the same day as episode 48, or around the same time as episode 48. So
same week.
Yeah, same week. So if you want to listen to them as one episode, then wait 2 weeks and listen to that. Or if you don't mind listening to it as 2 separate serials, and you don't mind having that cliffhanger that may or may not happen at the end of the first episode, then you can do that. And so, yeah, email us at thedoctor@decorativevegetable.com. Questions, comments, concerns, fan fiction. We'll read it.
About write a fan fiction about the Toymaker and the Great Intelligence. Why not?
You know what a good plot for a fan fiction would be? The Celestial Toymaker and the Master Brain. Or the Master of the Land of Fiction. Similar ideas, similar concepts could work well together. Just saying, you can credit me if you use that synopsis. Check us out. check us out on iTunes at Trust Your Doctor. Check the website, which is decorativevegetable.com. The episode index is now up. Yay! So now you can easily access all of your favorite Trust Your Doctor episodes. And check us out on YouTube. That channel is also up at Trust Your Doctor.
And check out the Facebook page, fun facts every week, stuff we forgot to mention in the episodes or didn't know, stuff you probably didn't know. And next week, like we said, we're watching the first half of The Invasion. So until then, the end.